Jesus said, "I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never be hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty." I learned a lot from my grandmother on my mother's side, Grandma Mary. She was truly special to me and everyone else who knew her. If you have been in my office lately since my mother passed away, you may have noticed an aerial picture painting leaning on the back of a chair of a pond in a farmhouse. That is where she lived with Grandpa George, who was also very special and taught me many things. I have come to believe, especially over the last few years, that if not for that farm and those people, I would be in prison. Grandma Mary loved to cook, bake, garden, and tend the apples in her orchard. She made the best apple pie ever. And as many folks here know who have had me over for a dinner or gone out with me, it is still my absolute favorite. Her pies were just the right combination of sweetness, a little tart, firm but soft, delicious fruit, flaky, tender, slightly salty crust. Perfect, especially with milk to wash it down. And although the entire pie is what she knew I wanted and what I wanted, I knew it would not be so. For when she baked a pie, I knew that we would be off to visit the neighbors, to share the pie with her friends and her neighbors, and to also teach me another lesson to the farmer down the road who was constantly causing my grandparents grief. It didn't matter. She wanted to share her abundance with others. You see, she packed up the pie and went to visit her friends. "Here, have a piece of pie," she said, and she sliced a pie and dished it out onto one of the paper plates that she brought with her. I won't stay long, but I hope you enjoy this. She and I visited while the friends and neighbors ate the pie. Yes, a small piece, but just enough to share and get a taste. But sweet fruit and flaky crust brought by a friend or neighbor deserves a sit down and some friendly conversation, a realization about what and who is truly important. The pie was just too good not to share. So she and I spent the entire day sharing the pie, slice by modest slice. We and those with whom we shared it found that even a small piece could convey the essence of it. Sunshine, earth, abundance, creativity, compassion. I have come to think of those times with my grandmother as communion by pie. It was a kind of grace that conveyed that connection and relationship is what we all really hunger for. The pie did not cause the connection, of course, yet it served as a means for it, a way to say, "I see you. I want you to enjoy. I want you to join me in enjoyment, in nourishment, in a moment set aside." In those days, take off your work gloves. Today, turn off your computer, set down your cell phone, your checkbook, your dish towel. Sit down for a moment and do nothing more than enjoy a piece of pie with a friend. Now, pie is indeed not bread. A good homemade pie says indulgence in a way that most common loaves of bread do not, unless one is truly hungry. But a good loaf of bread can also remind us of humble elements transformed. Flour, salt, yeast, maybe some eggs to glaze the crust. The tangible and instantaneous connection with foundational processes of life. Sun ripening grain, earth and rain feeding growth, human labor and creativity transforming raw materials into life-sustaining nourishment. You know, immigrants packed their trunks with wheat seeds when they journeyed to the Great Plains of North America. Refugees sowed seeds into the hems of their skirts and their children's shirts for the voyage, so the new life they longed for would be sustainable in their new home. They knew with even a bit of bread, they would be nourished. It would be a blessing. They knew they could sustain life, planting, harvesting, mixing, baking, taking, blessing, breaking, giving. We meet Jesus today in the gospel just after he has fed the 5,000, after everyone has had their fill of bread. They have had the pleasure of eating enough. We know that because people have pushed away from the table that Jesus set for them in the wilderness, feeling satisfied, for there were many leftovers. They had had enough. The funny thing about enough, though, just what is enough? The people Jesus fed wanted a guarantee that they would always have enough. Jesus' provision of plentiful bread seemed to them something they wanted more of. So they pursued him. They thought if they could have him, they could have bread, limitless, wonderful, unending bread. Enough. Jesus fed hungry people. He knew people need to eat. He told his followers to feed people real, physical, tangible, nutritious food. But he also promised that he himself would be enough. He didn't want to be just a provider of physical bread. He wants to be our bread, our sustenance, our nourishment, our daily strength, our source of satisfaction. Jesus is bread, yes, but he wants so much more. He wants to fill the hunger of our hearts and not just our stomachs. He wants to fill the gnawing, aching emptiness that we try to fill with lesser things. To put an end to the grasping, fretting, worrying about having enough of anything that will, in the end, possess us, rather than allowing ourselves to fall into the hands of the one for whom we have been made. Jesus is daily sustenance. And while Grandma Mary's pie is delicious, it is not enough to provide the sustenance that we need. Jesus is bread to be savored, gathered around, bread to inspire thanksgiving, to remind us of the wonder of life, to strengthen us. We can contemplate him thoughtfully, chewing slowly, pondering. But we will gain more if we come to him as hungry beggars, open to whatever he places in our outstretched hands. Jesus was taken, blessed, and broken. And then he was shared. The sharing of his life invites us to exercise the creativity of an artisan bread baker, a pie maker, and the compassion of a mother sowing seeds into the clothing of her children so they will always have sustenance for the journey. Jesus said, "I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never be hungry." Let us eat.